The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show. As we covered earlier on in the week, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell of an apparent suicide, putting aside any speculation about whether it really was or was not a suicide. This is a guy who was extremely well connected, and we are now starting to hear really about sort of the scope of his connections, both involving the child sex trafficking and political connections and other associates. And we're learning about any number of people, assistants that were involved in the sex trafficking piece of it. And of course, even with Epstein dead, it would be great for those people to be held accountable. There are both employees and associates that facilitated what Epstein allegedly did. They contacted victims. They scheduled sexual encounters. They are listed in documents as employee with numbers, employee 1, employee 2, etc. Assistants are not named in the documents, but are known to exist. There are also all sorts of folks, including some notable ones, like one example being Les Wexner. Les Wexner is an extremely wealthy business dude who was the founder of L Brands, which includes Victoria's Secret and Bath and Body Works. And Wexner has said, oh yeah, Epstein was personally managing my money at one point in time. And served as a trustee of the Wexner Foundation, which is a massive charitable group. And I even know people who are involved with some of the charitable projects of the Wexner Foundation. So this is a very, very long list. Alan Dershowitz is on the list. Prince Andrew, we know about two presidents, Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. And I think what's important here, Pat, is that we not sort of conflate, we shouldn't conflate an associate to someone that was involved financially with Epstein to people that we have reason to believe, like Donald Trump, were actually involved in the sexually predatory stuff. It's all different. It all needs to be looked at separately. And there are drastically varying degrees of evidence with a lot of these different people.
Yeah, and with all these names being floated out there, like Les Wexner and Alan Dershowitz and the presidents, Prince Andrew, it's easy to conflate them all together and put them into one pool. But, you know, many of those people severed their ties with Epstein at a certain point, be it 5, 10, 15 years ago. And so we have to take a look at all those individual cases individually. Same thing with like the Me Too movement stuff that went on about a year and a half ago at this point. And I think that's important to do. At the same time, there's definitely some fishy stuff here. Like Les Wexner had Jeffrey Epstein managing his money and his philanthropic work, but Epstein didn't really have a background in that stuff. So it's hard to imagine that the first client or the first few clients that he would take on is someone who's so rich and powerful and well-connected. Also, the Alan Dershowitz thing, it's kind of weird to see Dershowitz respond to the allegations made against him. Apparently, he was accused of receiving a massage from an underage girl. And in response, he claimed that it was actually from an old Russian lady and that he kept his underwear on the entire time, which is getting kind of oddly specific. There's the Bill Clinton trips that he apparently took with Jeffrey Epstein. Clinton's team said that it was only 4 times, but apparently it was over 20 times. So, yeah, it's all very interesting. I think we'll learn more about it in the coming weeks and months. But what we do know is that Jeffrey Epstein apparently kept very meticulous records and had cameras installed in some of the facilities where some of these acts went on. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's even video evidence of some of this stuff. And it makes sense because for blackmail purposes, if he wants to stay connected to these people and stay in power, it would make sense that he would want to keep records and tabs on them.
Now that it's been a few days, what do you think about suicide versus murder at this point?
I am leaning on the side of suicide. Because I think that this happens kind of frequently. Like if you have these like rich, powerful people go to jail and they realize that this is the end of the road for them, there's no way out, they're totally disgraced, they're not going to, have any future. It's very common to see those people commit suicide. It happened with Aaron Hernandez, the former Patriots tight end, a couple years ago. That guy, Ariel Castro, I think his name was, the man, I think it was from Florida, who kept women chained up in his basement for like over a decade.
For some reason, I think it might have been Ohio. But yeah, I remember the case you're talking about.
Yeah, like within a few weeks of him getting arrested, put in jail, he committed suicide. So this is a very common thing. And I think Occam's razor just tells me it was suicide. Also, I mean, people point to the fact that, he was just on suicide watch, or that he just committed suicide about a month ago. So you'd think that they would, be paying closer attention to him, but he wasn't on suicide.
Attempted to commit suicide a month ago, not
Yeah,
committed, of course. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But like, he wasn't on suicide watch at the time. So I think that it stands to reason that he could have tried it again and succeeded the second time.
One of the things I read was that the reason he was taken off of suicide watch was at the urging of his attorneys, because being on suicide watch comes with such strict limitations. Although, I don't know, I'm hoping we eventually just get a straight answer about that issue. But in any case, just a horrible series of events and allegations. And we will see what we know 3 months from now about all of this as documents and other stuff continues to come out. Federal regulators put out a warning earlier this week that people should not drink a solution of chlorine dioxide that is often promoted online as a remedy for autism, HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other conditions. We're basically talking about bleach here. And in 2010, the FDA actually said this is a very similar solution to industrial bleach. This is really bad for you. You will have severe nausea. You will vomit. You will have low blood pressure. You can become dehydrated. It can have effects on eyesight, I believe, in some cases. And apparently this is a thing that is being promoted online as possibly a cure for all sorts of different conditions. My initial reaction to this stuff, Pat, is always, how can people be so dumb? And then I sort of pull back from that and become more kind of like empathetic and understanding about, in desperate situations, people who maybe are from certain, I don't know, socioeconomic backgrounds. They're just looking for help and solutions. We have a disastrous health care system in our country where maybe people can't get like real, actual professional care. So they look stuff up. I mean, I don't know, but this is just horrible.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of the times in a sense. Maybe it has to do in part with the fact that some of the gatekeepers that we used to have in like the information world and like the health and medicine world are gone now because of the internet, because people can look up YouTube videos of people recommending you drink something similar to bleach to cure your cancer or your autism. And people just go along with it because there's no easy way to check whether or not it's true, or they just want to believe that it's true. So they go ahead and do it. It's not like the olden times where you had to just rely on the advice of your doctor, and maybe if you were to look into this stuff on your own, you would find it in maybe like a medical journal or something that was a little bit more peer reviewed. And yeah, I think this is something that is going to keep popping up. These trends continue. We see like, those challenges every now and then, people eating Tide Pods. It's just crazy stuff, but it's not at all surprising.
It's never even been remotely interesting. I mean, we're now getting onto something else, but I've talked about this before. Like, eating paste or dirt as a kid, or like trying weird things. I never had that curiosity, and I'm not equating these things even remotely, to be clear. But I do think that there may be some kind of, aside from circumstances that we're talking about, there may be some kind of personality predisposition to even being open to stuff like this that might be related to in some way the people who were like, yeah, I'll eat some soap or whatever. I don't know. It sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, maybe it is intuitive in a sense, because soap and bleach and all these products, they clean your household items. They clean your kitchen, right? They clean your bathroom.
Well,
maybe
soap
they can do the same for your body. Yeah, well, that's true. Well, soap cleans the outside of your body.
Right.
Maybe they think that it can also clean the inside of your body and release the harmful toxins that's going on in there. Yeah,
that might be, I mean, we're sort of joking, but I think that there probably is some underlying philosophical thread through all of this stuff. It's weird, but it's tragic. Don't drink bleach. Don't drink this stuff. This is bad. It won't cure or help with any condition whatsoever. The Trump administration is moving forward with these regulations that will have a major impact on the immigration system. Because they're attempting to instate a policy where a green card or visa can be denied to immigrants who use or are expected to use a whole bunch of different benefits, ranging from food stamps to Medicaid and housing vouchers. And the idea here is to start effectively targeting people that the administration believes are going to cost more than others by virtue of their presence in the United States, and to use that as a justification to deny them immigration status. Now, my hope is that a court would find this illegal. And the basis on which it would be found illegal is that it is putting in place a sort of barometer or criteria for immigration that goes beyond what is in the law. And then it just becomes a question of, well, can the administration modify what's in the law? As of right now, this is a policy. This is a public charge policy. And as such, it would be subject to judicial review. But every time we talk about this, Pat, and we say, well, hopefully the courts will get it right, increasingly the courts are made up of judges that Donald Trump has appointed. 2 on the Supreme Court, 25% and climbing of superior and appellate courts. So increasingly, like with every passing month, we literally can't rely on the idea that eventually courts are going to do the right thing.
Yeah, and this may have to go through the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and if it does, then that would be a little bit more on our side because that tends to be a little bit more liberal. But certainly some of the other district courts are more conservative, and if it gets up to the Supreme Court, who knows what would happen, because conservatives do have a slim majority there. Yeah, I'm worried especially about the unintended consequences of this, because if you have visa applicants or people who have green cards in the country, they may fear signing up for some of these welfare programs because they would be worried that it would affect their legal status here in the United States. And maybe instead of getting SNAP benefits, they'll decide not to, and some of them could go hungry. Or instead of signing up for Medicaid, they will decide not to because they worry that would kind of put into jeopardy their legal status here. So I'm very worried about that stuff. And also, I think there would be the unintended consequences of causing more undocumented immigrants, because people would want to fly under the radar if they realize that if they try to go through the legal means of getting into the country, but they don't have the financial means to necessarily support themselves, then maybe the best option for them is to go into the country undocumented instead of through the legal immigration process.
Well, it's so short-sighted in that if you consider that, again, the idea is that they would determine whether someone's likely to use benefits in some cases, so it wouldn't actually even be based on whether you are actually using benefits. But what we know is that if someone doesn't have food stamps and they don't have money for food, they become more likely to commit a crime to get that food, or to steal money to get the food. So are we really actually better off? Because there's a huge societal cost to that. If people don't go on Medicaid because they're worried if they go on Medicaid, they may lose their legal status. If they get hurt or they have an illness or symptoms, they will use the emergency room as their primary care provider, which is expensive. And it's one of the reasons we pay for so much for healthcare. So it's so short-sighted in that way.
Yeah, and I also think this is going to the shithole countries comment that Trump made, that we want people from Norway and Sweden, and we don't want people from Mexico and Guatemala, because people in those northern European countries tend to have more money, just based on where the currency value is and what cost of living is like in those countries. So maybe they would be able to better afford coming to the United States, whereas someone from Latin America may not be able to because of the currency valuation and what the cost of living is down there. And so I think that this would lead to more immigrants coming here from Europe and fewer coming from Hispanic Latin America or from Africa. And I think that's exactly what Trump and Republicans want.
Yeah, that's a feature of this idea rather than a bug. And we'll see, hopefully, again, a court ultimately. Hopefully it doesn't go forward as proposed. If it does, hopefully it will be challenged in court. And if it is, hopefully a court will make the right decision about this. But increasingly, we simply can't count on that because it is a Trumpist judiciary with every passing day, week, and month. It is a judiciary nationally made up more and more of people that Donald Trump has selected. That does it for today. New show, new bonus show tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.